Welcome to the podcast. This is Destination Education, and I'm here today with Nathaniel, Charlotte, and Kashi. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. So you were surprised at the setup, and you thought that I'd invited you here under sort of false pretenses or something like that. But I haven't. And what I wanted to do was, I've been speaking to lots of older people, educators, heads of school, and I wanted to get you guys in for a different, fresh perspective. So just to set the scene, you all graduated from a UK boarding school last year.
Yeah.
And so we're going to take it from there. Kashi, just tell us a little bit about yourself, really, really briefly. And we also said we don't necessarily want to reveal the names of the schools because we don't think it's relevant. Everyone listening will have their own ideas about maybe what schools that they are considering. And all schools have their pros and cons, right? So, yeah, just briefly, Kashi, just tell us a couple of sentences about yourself.
My name is Kashi. I was born in Hong Kong, and I went to school in the UK in the middle of COVID.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte?
I'm Charlotte. I'm a local from Hong Kong. I went to international school prior, and I went to UK around
2019.
September
2019.
Yeah. And so I had kind of an all-rounded experience from year 9 till my final year in year 13. And it was a really nice experience.
Okay, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
What does nice mean? Nathaniel?
Hi, I'm Nathaniel. I was also born and raised in Hong Kong. And before going to boarding school, I went to a local school here. And I also went to boarding school in 2019, so right before COVID.
Yeah, well, I think let's put the COVID issue aside because, we've or maybe it will come up. Let's see. But thankfully, that's in the past, and that was then, and this is now. So, I mean, just jump in, any of you. Why boarding school in the UK?
I think for me especially, the boarding school we picked was for multiple reasons, but also it's close to my family. So my dad's side of the family is all from England, and we picked somewhere that was, close enough where if we needed them, but far enough where, you're still independent. And I think the quality of education in England for boarding schools is quite world known. And so it's quite a good path to go on to doing, if you do A-levels, to go on to a top UK university.
Is that the same?
My experience was quite different because I didn't really have any family in the UK. So the reason why I decided I wanted to go to boarding school was because I kind of wanted to learn how to take care of myself, become more independent, and just learn all the life skills that you really need to be equipped with.
Right.
So, of course, we were all really cared for all the time by house mistresses, but I think the most important part of why I decided to go was to develop more holistically as a person.
So it's most definitely your idea and not your parents'.
Oh, I've always wanted to go to boarding school
really?
since I was a kid. Yeah.
Why?
I just thought it was just a different experience, and not only would it be a more unique environment, I'd also learned how to communicate and connect with different people, as well as taking care of myself personally.
And because you don't have a UK connection, did you also consider boarding schools in other countries, or was that not?
No, I just considered boarding schools in the UK.
Why?
US is quite far, and I really liked the idea of boarding school in UK at the time. It seemed quite it just seemed like a very different experience I really wanted to try.
But how did you even know about it? I mean, did your parents go to boarding school in the UK, or was it Harry Potter, or how did you even know about it?
It was 20% Harry Potter.
The same, I think when I went to boarding school, I was expecting to turn up to a castle and that looked like Hogwarts.
I was expecting Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And was it anything like that?
A little?
Not really. My school it's a bit more of a modern building because it was recently renovated. But I think a big thing about choosing a school, so I remember I toured multiple schools, is not necessarily a school that is the top school or a higher rating, but somewhere that you feel you would fit in more. So whether it's if you like a certain subject that they were offering, or a teacher that you met on the open day, I think those factors really have a bit bigger of a play than if it's rated higher than another school.
100%. Yeah. Let's get back to that for sure. Kashi, we should just say that you're my daughter, just for disclaimer. Why did you go to boarding school in the UK?
I think there were a few reasons.
Don't say your mom made you.
No. I was doing the IB program, doing NYP, and I didn't really enjoy it that much. It was just, there was too much going on. I needed like more structure, which the GCSE is it a program thing gave me.
Yeah.
The curriculum that gave me more structure. And what was another reason? Oh, COVID. The schools had shut down in Hong Kong, and I wasn't going to class, and so I went to the UK because I thought I'd be able to actually have in-person class. And then 3 weeks later, school shut down. It was a really fun experience.
Well, it was fun,
that was
actually.
fun.
It was fun.
We ended up living together
I
in
stayed with Nathaniel in a cabin in the middle of
nowhere. And we had like a little
crazy.
badminton court outside.
Yeah,
That was about
You
it.
bought one of those nets on Amazon. It was so much fun.
So the schools in the UK did shut down for a brief period, but it was certainly not as much as some other countries.
It was never on my mind to go to boarding school. My brother was always interested in it. We'd always do summer camps in like the UK where we'd board for a week for my brother to get so he would get used to it. And then I ended up going to the boarding school first. He followed a year later.
So I want to pick up on your idea of independence, Charlotte. So was it scary being dropped off in boarding school in the middle of England without your parents? And did you really need to fend for yourself?
It was quite scary, and I did cry a little because I was like 14, mainly because I was 14. I was like, I don't even know when I'm going to see my mom and dad next.
Yeah.
But I don't think I had to fend for myself because I quickly made so many friends. I connected really well with all the people. But I do remember there was this moment where I was like, I might slightly cooked when we were all, so basically the school I went to, there was a kind of, what was it? It was kind of a feeder school.
Oh, a feeder school. The prep school.
A prep school. There we go. Sorry. And people kind of already had friends. So it was only me and two other girls who didn't go to that prep school.
Right.
So I felt quite a little left out initially, like upon arrival, because everyone already knew each other.
But that didn't last for long. You said you made friends.
Within an hour, we were all
So an hour, I thought she was talking like a
so
day.
that like fending for myself feeling lasted for an hour, guys.
That does have to do with the sixth storm, because like when I showed up halfway through the year, and I was really nervous, and like 5 minutes in, you all had me like on a floor in like a circle.
We
and
were
talking
doing
about...
a massage train.
Yeah. Like an hour after we met.
And you must have then had experience of other children joining after you.
Yeah.
And so welcoming new students, did it come very naturally, or was there anything contrived about it? The teachers weren't asking you to welcome the students, or what?
I think from my school, we would obviously start off by being quite nice to them. I think as you are to anyone new, especially if you're situated. It's not that you're instantly becoming friends with them, but you'll show them to their room, or tell them a bit about the house. And our school, if it was a new boarder in our house, they would assign a senior person in the same year who's been there a couple of years to them as a buddy, and they would take them to class and be a bit more responsible for them. But I don't feel like in a boarding house it's very hard to make friends, because if you live with someone, you're going to find something to get along with about,
Let's take a quick break to talk about something that can make all the difference for your child's educational journey. I'm thrilled to share that this episode is sponsored by Top Schools, your trusted partner in navigating the complex world of school applications. If you're aiming for a top independent school in the UK, Top Schools offers personalised consulting to ensure your child finds the very best fit with a guaranteed outcome. From identifying those best fit schools to crafting standout applications to invigilating the entrance exams, the expert team is with you every step of the way. Ready to take control of your child's future? Visit topscoresadmissions.com or click the link in the show notes to learn more and book a consultation today. Use the code DESTINATION for 20% off. That code is DESTINATION for 20% off personalised support for entry into a top independent boarding school in the UK. Now, back to our conversation.
But there must be, I mean, we do hear stories about children who go to boarding school and for whatever reasons they don't fit in. And did you see that happen in your houses or in your schools?
Yeah.
Can you identify, do you think that there's any obvious reasons why children don't fit in? Because it sounds like you three obviously fitted in and enjoyed it pretty quickly.
I mean, I know, did you get a choice in which house you went to?
I did have a choice, but I decided to just let school randomize it for me. And I thought personally I got really lucky in being put in the house.
Yeah, it made or break. It made or break the entire experience.
I don't know if it was like that in your school, but it was almost like different houses had different distinct personalities.
Yeah.
So the house you got put in, I'm not saying defined your experience, but it played a major part in the people you were surrounded with.
I agree completely, because in our school we had 2 boy houses and there was a couple other girl houses, but they were spread through the years. But the 2 boy houses, one always had a bit more going on in it, and one was the quieter, more like peaceful, because we had the younger years. And I was just placed into, because when you join in year 9, you only get to go to one of the houses. And when I went to year 11, I got the choice to switch. And I was like, I'll stay here. We had the nicer facilities, but also the people, it's just a more relaxed environment. I think because we were a bit further away from the main campus and not attached to the main building directly.
So was yours the quieter house or the one with a bit more going on?
Quieter house.
one.
It sounds like the calm one.
Yeah.
But I think it was because we had the younger coming up students. Well, that was the other house was fully.
But did you choose that deliberately, or was that just randomly assigned?
At the beginning in year 9, you're only allowed to go into that house,
right?
And I chose deliberately to stay.
I see.
Because the rooms were nicer and the facilities were there.
And you were randomly assigned?
Yeah, I didn't get a choice.
I did know many people who did choose the house we were in specifically. We also had online previews of the house. There were pictures of the house mistresses and personal messages from the housemaster or mistresses. So I feel like that was a major factor in a lot of people picking specific houses.
Yeah.
I think most of the time then parents and children don't get any choice.
I think, well, I know like lots of people in our school got a choice.
Yeah, there are also
But
house
because
tours.
they all went on tours of the school.
Yeah.
Did you go on a tour?
No.
We both didn't go on tours of the school before we went, so we didn't get to see the house in person. So a lot of other people did.
At my school as well, if you were a legacy student, if your older brother or siblings went or your parents went, you could ask specifically to be put in that house, and they would try their best to accommodate.
For my son that goes to a different school also, because he ended at a strange time, but we didn't have the choice of house. No, we didn't. We had 2 offers from 2 different schools, and we chose based on the meeting with the housemaster. That was it. Yeah. So it sounds like choosing the house, like you said, Charlotte, can make or break it. So do you know stories of friends or classmates that were in like the wrong house?
Yeah.
I think there's no definitive wrong house, so to speak. I think it's
Very
all
diplomatic.
about your friends, though. It's true, because I had friends who were in my house, which I absolutely loved and my friends loved, but he felt more suited for the other house, and also the other way around. And it's hard to say like, oh, there's one definitive better house. Everyone's going to say their house is the best.
Right.
Everyone's going to be proud of their houses, same as like sports teams or stuff like that. Okay. But it's where maybe your friends are, people in your class are, or people you get along with. But I think it's really hard to say definitively.
I did think that there are different people who, just because they weren't part of the main like friend group within the house itself, it didn't mean they didn't belong to the house. The house itself, it's not like the house, the building, or the people like had its own definitive personality. It's just the different friend groups within the houses.
So do you tend to make friends in-house and not so much friends with your classmates, or a bit of a mix?
You can. I think my experience was only in-house because I went in during COVID and you were sectioned off in bubbles.
Yeah.
And so you could only like basically talk and hang out with the people in your house. And then we were also separated within our year groups in-house by boarders and pupils.
Even in extracurricular
And
activities.
yeah, extracurricular activities, classes, like even eating.
I made
We'd have
most
different
of my,
tables.
Sorry. I made most of my friends in-house, but then also a few outside in classes.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just quite, it's not really the fact that you're in-house or in classes. It's more so the fact that you spend most of your time in-house and the ratio between the time you spend within the house and classes are quite disproportionate.
I guess it's the same now. I know that some of you are in university, all of you are in university. You're probably making friends with your flatmates or your, boarding accommodation rather than people in your lectures.
I think something about friends at like school and university is you're always going to be friends with the people closest to you distance-wise. It's so much better to have a friend that's right down the hall than that's like 3 buildings away.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
the same in boarding.
Makes
And
sense.
I found in boarding, my school was mixed boarding and day.
Right.
And it was a really small school. We had maybe through kindergarten to year 13, 600 people. And I found that you would mix with the day students and you'd be friends with them. But because you live with these people, you're also going to be closer to the people next door to you in your room than the people very far down the hall. And maybe that was my experience. But
Yeah, makes sense.
I agree with that. But my best friend is a day pupil.
Yeah.
Okay.
my closest friends are day students as well. But I would also find you have friends in your house and the friends in your
you
house.
were kind of a day pupil. You went home quite often.
I went home on weekends. My family, we had a place in a city nearby that was about 30 minutes away. So I would go on the weekends to spend time with my family. But I would board during the week because it's so much more convenient to wake up and be in school.
I'd say the experience you have of your friends who were day pupils and the boarder friends were quite different because what I would do with my day pupil friend would just be like going uptown and watching movies, but then I would stay quite late in my friend's room. So don't tell my house mistress that. And just have late night chats with my boarder friends. So I'd say it's different.
It's
kind
different
of connections,
experiences. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Best things about UK boarding school.
The best thing is always being at school. The worst thing is also always being at school.
It's
Explain.
Well, like you're always at school, so you're always like your house mistress, house tutors who are on duty at night are all your teachers. So you're always just having to think about school. But then you also get to just always be at school. You wake up.
But it's not
10
just
minutes
your
later,
school,
you're in
is it? As we've
class.
it's not just school, it's
No.
where you live
Yeah, it's
and
also-
where you
it
socialise
It
and where
also
you have
becomes a
fun.
home.
it's
yeah.
You
yeah.
get to know your teachers a lot
It's your
better.
whole life for a
Yeah.
bit.
That's, I think, not negative necessarily, but something to be aware of when going into boarding school is it's not like when you go home and you get in bed, you can just completely switch off of school. It's quite
you
hard
can't,
when...
like leave it.
Yeah, when maybe if you're just
always
going
there.
upstairs and your classrooms are below your bedroom or in a just next door to like, where you play sports, it's hard to mentally disconnect as easily. It takes a bit of time and it's something to get used to, especially coming from a day school where you leave and you just forget about it.
Yeah. Which makes me think about the exeats. So all of the schools tell us, you're sighing, but the schools tell us that they have leave out weekends. Did your school have exeats?
We didn't have exeats.
You didn't have them.
So nice.
You like that?
hated them.
Yeah, because I've had
hated
friends who've had exeats and, we didn't have Saturday school.
Right.
So that was a thing for exeats is you wouldn't have
But it
Saturday
makes
school.
up for the Saturday school.
Yeah.
But the point of exeats is like what you're saying is you're saying you're always in school and you can't switch off. But the point of a leave out weekend is to say, okay, now go home or go somewhere else.
Go home and
change
relax.
your scene and switch off. But then you're at the same time you're saying you didn't enjoy exeats.
I love them.
I mean, well, the exeat was like 2.5 days. I'd spend 2 of those 2.5 days traveling,
Right.
hoping I didn't miss my train.
Yeah.
I had so many connections, and so I ended up having even a more stressful weekend than if I had Saturday school.
But you got to see your mum.
Yeah. but I told you, like, once every 2 days.
Yeah.
I think something is about, I'm not sure about your guys' school, but from my school, day pupils were allowed to sign borders out on the weekends.
Oh.
So, and this is why I think exits, personally, I wouldn't have liked it, is you're kind of, those weekends you're forced to leave, and you like, yeah, sometimes you can go to a friend's house who's nearby, or sometimes you have to go quite far. But with our school, if say there was something happening in London or another city, your friend can just sign you out any weekend, whenever they want, and they can bring you anywhere to their house. You can go on holiday, you can do something in that weekend, and that's where you get to switch off. And that's, I think, quite different.
We can do that. You just have to get
special permission
from, you have to have your parents email your house mistress and the deputy head as well, and it has to be approved.
Well, there's safeguarding issues. So that friend that signs you out, their parents have to be responsible for you.
I did quite a few day trips with 2 of our friends. We went to Worcester quite often, or Birmingham. Went to go watch movies.
Yeah.
I really just
cinema.
liked to switch off completely and had like my alone time during Extracurricular, and because I didn't have a house.
So where did you go during Extracurricular?
I had a guardian and a host family, which I've known for the longest time. I've been staying with them since I was around 14, 15-ish.
Right.
And it was also during COVID, so I spent long periods of time in their house. And they're your host family. They're supposed to be a bit like your second family. And it definitely felt like it, because I was being cooked the most like pristine meals, and the rooms were so nice. And I think if you're from Hong Kong and you're going to boarding school, that's definitely a lot of options that parents look into.
Were they a family friend, or were they through a guardianship company?
No, they were through a guardian company.
Okay.
And I think the school arranged it for you, but I also did mine independently. Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like you got lucky with them as
Yeah,
well.
I was super lucky.
All right, best things about boarding school. So
social life, I'd say, right off the bat.
Yeah.
I think because you're always there, especially, I think when you first get there, there's that novelty of like you're in a house with all your friends, and it's kind of
like
fun.
A forever
sleepover.
Yeah, you put it that way. But I think when that novelty wears off, and you go into your year 11 and you start maturing a bit, it's so nice just to have your friends just so close by, and you can just go and do things, go to the local village, or go into town, and it's just nice to be able to be there, and the independence of it.
Yeah.
I would say the facilities as well. I mean, obviously you have the library like right near, so you can go down to the library whenever.
Did you ever go to the library?
I was just thinking
In between classes, when we had English, we'd always be going to the library.
Okay.
And the gym. We went to the gym before
Yeah.
classes sometimes.
I think having access to sports facilities in your house is
Well,
it's quite
you've got
nice.
swimming pool,
Yeah,
gyms,
rock
the
climbing
fields, rock
wall.
climbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've
We've got the
football.
Astros as
Yeah.
well.
But do you also maybe get a little bit, what's the word? A little bit lazy, because it's all right
Yeah.
there.
you kind of get so used to it that you
Yeah.
kind of neglect it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I wake up in my uni dorm now, I'm like, oh, I wish I was a rock climbing wall, like right down the street.
I wish I was 5 minutes away from the gym, not 40 minutes away.
Yeah, I also neglected that like med center.
I neglected the gym so much because we were able to go to the gym starting year 10. I didn't start going until halfway through year 12.
You went eventually though.
I started going eventually, but I could have gone a lot earlier.
I think one of my favorite things about boarding school was the connections we had not only with the students, but with the staff members as well. I remember I'm still in contact with my favorite teachers today, and the house mistresses, the house staff especially, just everyone who put the effort into taking care of you. I think you form a really special bond that I still think about today.
And I think on that, I don't know about your school, but my school would have normal class teachers who would come in on certain evenings of the week and sit in as like in the matron's office and just do a checkup.
The duty room chat.
Yeah, and you get to go and have a talk with them. And I remember, certain teachers would come in and the sofas in the office would be full. And also the benefit of that in year 13, when it's that crunch time for your A levels is if that's your economics teacher,
Extra
Oh,
revision.
they're
lucky
right
you.
there. And that happened to a lot of people where you just have access because all the teachers have to rotate through, and it's quite nice.
I still remember one of my favorite teachers leaving. We were in tears in that.
He brought a
room.
guitar. Was it a guitar or ukulele in?
Yeah,
and
started singing and
Started
everything.
singing songs. He was teaching us campfire songs.
Yeah,
It's so
you do. I
fun.
saw some of that, building really strong relationships. And for me as a parent, you're away from home. It's really nice to know that you've got those adults. You're surrounded by, of course, you're surrounded by your friends and your peers, but there are lots and lots of adults that really care about you. And you've got access to lots of different points of view or subject expertise, as it were. And so I think that's a really good point. Other best things about boarding school?
I was just going to say something on what you're saying about point of views, and I think, did you guys have a headmaster and a mistress as well?
No, we just had a
We just had one
Okay,
headmaster.
Oh no, sorry, in the house, a housemaster and a house mistress.
We just had a house.
We had a house mistress, but she had a husband. He wasn't around.
No,
But-
he didn't have a.
He didn't have a role, but he did help out with certain things
I think
on occasion.
in my boarding house, that we had a headmaster and a matron. And
Housemaster.
Housemaster.
Yeah. You also had a matron though. No, that's normal.
yeah.
Normal
Yeah.
structure.
We had a male housemaster and then a female matron. I think it was quite nice because they would play not like a good cop, bad cop, but you would know who to go to for certain things. Like if you were struggling with how to do your laundry,
Yep.
you don't go to your housemaster because then he'll yell at you. And if you need help with something, you go to your housemaster.
I think matron's in charge of sewing in name tapes, right, into your clothes. And then
Pretty much.
medical things, and I think that's pretty normal. Most houses will have a
But
house.
I think that's quite important to have. It's nice. It's
Well,
like a motherly
mimic-
role.
Yeah, and it's mimicking the family structure,
Yeah.
if you like. Yeah.
We were just telepathically communicating that we had matrons as well as house staff that weren't matrons.
Right.
Yeah.
So different terminology, but
Different
Yeah.
terminology.
I think that the matrons were like the duty assistant.
They kind of took care of keeping everyone in line,
Yeah.
whereas the house staff, they really took care of you. If I had a stain on my shirt, what do I do? How do I think I just broke the oven. I just set myself on fire. Like, what do I do? True story.
True story. Setting brownies on fire.
On like multiple occasions as well.
toast or brownies.
Oven. It was always the oven.
The toaster
Oh,
as well.
the toasters in my boarding house as well. Every other month, I think we were
Dude, there was a
replacing
sign
them.
that was like, don't put Nutella in the toaster.
Don't put buttered bread in the toaster.
Yeah.
Don't put muffins in the toaster.
All right. So, teaching you to be, a responsible human
Functioning
being.
Life
adult.
skills.
Life skills. Interesting. So, glad to see that you did not set yourself on fire.
All limbs intact.
Yep. The toaster may have had to be replaced, but Charlotte did not need to be rebuilt. Other good things about, should we talk about, let's move the conversation on to what you're essentially there for, which is to study. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or how did you find the teaching, the learning, the studying, the exams, all of that?
They were stressful, but I feel like the thing about boarding school is that you're so equipped with really knowledgeable teachers who are always willing to support you. I just remember the day before my actual history exam, after not doing too well on my mocks, I was really jittery and nervous. And I remember just staying right up until dinner time the day before my exam with my tutor, who was also my teacher. And I was just banging out essays and he would just mark them on the spot. And we went through that the whole day, basically.
Yeah.
So I think with the educational aspect, it was very supportive. And for me personally, I was always quite like onto it. But there were also quite set regiments for students. So just to remind them that you're here to learn, essentially. We had like set whole times.
You had set whole times during
2 hours a
during
day.
the night. Like like evening after dinner before
7:30 till
bedtime.
9.
Yeah, and they'd turn off the Wi-Fi. You couldn't access social media or any Netflix, so you had to like focus on work.
Yeah. And like first years had to study in our
In
dining room,
in the dining
where they were
hall.
like regularly checked up on. So it's really disciplined, and you can tell.
There's also
varying.
clinic times. There were
they
clinic
were
times in our
helpful.
school. They were
We're
like
kind of like tutor
like
periods.
after school revision sessions for each subject. Like teachers would put them on and stuff.
I'm hearing this now, and I had such a different experience. So there's obviously, I think, a distinction to be made is there are schools which are more academically rigorous and schools which are not as academically rigorous.
Right.
And so I went to a school that wasn't as academic as yours sounds like, but we still had set time. So we had 45 minutes in the library and an hour in your house, which you had to be studying or working on something. But I think I was lucky enough to have an unconditional offer for university, so I wasn't super stressed about exams. But I know people who were, and there was
not in the UK, because we were just discussing that the UK system is almost always conditional offers.
Oh yes, I didn't end up in the UK. But I think there is the support system there for if you are struggling.
Yeah.
And teachers are so willing to help, and I think it's very different from a day school, where the teachers here, it's also their life as much as it is ours, and they really do care, and I think that's like quite important.
That's really nice
They
to hear.
genuinely want you to succeed.
Yeah.
They know. I remember one of my history teachers saying they know the students who want to do well, and they can tell which students are willing to go the extra mile for them. And for those students, when they know that you're putting everything into these exams, they're more willing to help you, and you just have to ask.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember my classics teacher saying that she didn't have time for revision sessions in the evening, so she'd wake up at 5 a.m. to come to school for us for revision sessions twice a week.
I had that with my GCSEs.
No, but she lived 40 minutes away, so they'd be like 7:30 a.m. revision sessions
with
in the morning.
With my GCSEs, I had that with my history teacher, where she actually
really
came into
good.
work half an hour early, and I would go see her before registration in the morning, and we'd
Those
do
were
half
really
an hour of
crucial
revision.
revision sessions.
I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, I think as a parent, we're obviously paying quite high fees for that, so you would expect that to some degree. But it's nice to hear that they really care on top. But is there you actually have to ask for it? I mean, did you see a lot of some students that just didn't avail themselves of those benefits, and then they just sort of coast, or it's all there for them, but maybe not all students take advantage of it.
Yeah. I didn't go to English clinic as much as I should have.
Confessing to your
It was really busy.
It was
always
stressful.
slammed. It was so full. And there was like one teacher in there. So
I think with students, there's always going to be the ones who do the most.
Of course.
It's a spectrum, really. It depends on the person itself. And
Of course.
it's always a shame, but they're always good at other things. They don't have to be necessarily academic.
And as you were saying earlier, it's going to boarding school is about independence, and it's about taking that initiative to realize if you're falling back in a subject, to going to the clinic or going to ask the teacher. And that's a big thing about it. And I think especially in schools where you're living there, they try to treat you more like adults, and they don't want to baby you through it, say, oh, come now revision. They want you to have the initiative to do it, because also then you put more effort into it if you've decided to go.
Yeah. I mean, it is practice for real life after all. All right. So we might come back to any other sort of good things, things that you enjoyed the most about. And we should talk about the broader program, so apart from the lessons and apart from the socializing, like what else did you get up to when you were at boarding school?
I mean, my school was very adventurous.
Okay.
And we had a program once a week for 2 hours on a Wednesday where you had to do something active, and not like football or rugby. It was like rock climbing or skiing or hiking.
Where did you go skiing? Indoors?
No, like dry slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that for us was very nice. And I think the whole ethos of the school was to kind of get out of your comfort zone and try something new. And we had crazy things like bouldering, free climbing, loads of different options. And also, I think school trips abroad. I don't know if you guys went on any.
No.
But I did all my school ski trips.
Yeah, did you not go on? You didn't, because I mean, I know that post-COVID they actually took a while to get going with the trips. You didn't go on any trips either.
I know there was a trip that I was going to go on, but it got cancelled.
Oh, that's right.
So we went on the trip ourselves
Yeah.
as a family trip.
It's quite a good opportunity. Like my sister is at the same school as me and she studies art, and she's been to New York with the school twice now. And
That's cool.
it's a nice way to go. You get to go with your friends. I mean, you can't really complain. And I remember the ski trips are just, imagine all your friends skiing together. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
I did go on a trip. I went to a geography trip where it rained on us, and then we went to the Thames or something.
Those were day trips.
Yeah, they were day trips, but
I
they were
went
overnight
to
trips
London,
as well.
so I mean, there were a couple overnight trips. Like biology had a couple overnight trips where they would just be in like a little cabin.
I know some IB students who went to Spain.
Yes, some IB students went to Spain for their Spanish trip.
There's a lot of language exchanges in my school as well. They do kind of the Spain, Italy, France.
There used to be a lot more. There used to be the history trip as well, but that got cancelled.
And then lots of day trips.
Lots of day trips. I was in London so often.
Oh, we also
for English and drama, going to the theatre.
we had the CCF trips. So
We had field day trips.
an experience we had.
Just explain what CCF is.
CCF was a cadet program
It's the
that my school did.
Combined Cadet Forces. Every
And
school.
we did drills, weapon training, and just general
You didn't do that,
outdoor
no.
skills. So we did a lot of like first aid training, rabbit skinning.
You actually skinned a rabbit.
I did it.
We watched it be done, but we didn't do it ourselves. But in our school there were 3 different sects. There was the
Marines.
There was the Marines,
RAF.
the RAF, and the army.
Military, yeah, army.
So we did the army, but the RAF got to go fly planes and stuff, and
the Marines got to swim.
yeah, the
and
Marines went
everything.
swimming, and
And you
we
got
were
to
like
fire
we were on
guns.
dry land most of the time.
Yeah.
We did some. Our school had a shooting range.
Oh, I was blind the whole time. I was shooting at nothing.
I couldn't really. I wasn't really that good because I've got glasses, and you needed specialized like stuff for shooting with glasses. So I
You
wasn't
learn
really,
a lot.
I
from
wasn't really good
CCF.
at it, but we were in the shooting range often enough, and yeah, it was really fun.
So what else did you do that's like unusual, or that like day students wouldn't?
Games.
Or
Oh, day
Game
students could have
time.
been part of.
Oh, day students can do
okay.
CCF.
Yeah.
It was on
It's for
Wednesday
everyone.
afternoons.
Oh,
That's the same
Yeah.
time as
So
my
it was
like
after
skiing
lunch.
and
we'd have
hiking
like
and stuff.
half days on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Wednesdays
Wednesdays
and
for
Saturdays.
extracurricular activities, or the Duke of Edinburgh program was
yeah.
a big thing. So
Yeah.
you had like different sector of activities, like volunteering, sports, and at the end of the year, you went on one massive. They called it an
Expedition.
expedition.
The
Yeah.
expedition trip.
So I did a 40-kilometer walk, and it was beautiful.
yeah.
good weather.
In good weather. It was beautiful. The
Wow.
real one, not the COVID one where we went back to dorms and
every
showered and
night.
slept in our beds.
We weren't allowed to shower. Do you not remember?
I showered. I didn't care.
Our house mistress, we came back the first night being like, okay, we were so tired. Went and got our
Stinky.
phones out, like preparing to go like listen to music in the shower. And she's like, you can't have your phones. You're supposed to be pretending it's the real thing. You're not allowed to shower. You don't have showers during the real thing.
But
So,
the
yeah.
real thing was just,
It
it was
was-
one of my core memories.
Yeah, I loved, like, I didn't have the best, like, group mates when we did the real expedition, but I had one of my best friends at the time. We're still quite good friends, but she's moved schools. But I did kayaking,
Oh,
so
that's
we
rough.
shared a kayak together. No, it was so much fun.
Apart from the blisters, I had an amazing time.
I was
in
getting
a
to
group
sit
with my
down
best
the entire day
friends.
floating along the water.
Did you do trip? Oh, you said you had the Wednesday afternoon.
We had the Wednesday things,
Yeah.
and we also had because our boarding was maybe 35% of our school.
Right,
So they put on a lot on the weekends for us. And so there would be trips into the nearby city. I remember, and also the houses would organize their own trips. So obviously being one of the boys' houses, we went go-karting probably once a term, and it was very competitive and it's a lot of fun. Or we'd go indoor ice skating sometimes on the weekends. and loads of other
Our
like
sc-
We had
sports.
birthday
We had
trips.
school trips like to Alton Towers and
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
and the Christmas markets.
Yeah, that too.
But then we also had like in-house
birthday
trips for each like semester. So if your birthday was in the first semester, you went ice skating.
So at least each semester we'd
Yeah.
go like laser tag.
You had laser tag,
Yeah.
and then what was the third semester?
I don't remember.
It
but
was a pizza party, I think.
I
they
think
had.
it depends on your house mistress or master.
Yeah.
I had a really generous house mistress
Mhm,
who would organize just bonding events. So if you were a new student, we had like gatherings for new students each term or year.
Yeah.
And just if
But
you were
then
ever feeling left out,
We also
there were
had
activities.
the like every so often she had a chocolate fountain, and she'd pull
Oh,
it
yeah,
out.
that's
And
what
But
I
start-
your house mistress and chocolate. That
She
was a
had
hand in
big
hand.
theme
Yeah,
of their
she'd
house.
just bring out the chocolate fountain and put it in the common room, and we'd all be able to like gather in there. She'd
Yeah.
order pizzas.
I
They'd
think
put on a movie.
in the boarding houses. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but most boarding houses will get a budget from the school. All of
Yes.
ours did, and they can choose to spend that how they want. And normally, in my house, they let us decide. So
Yes.
we got maybe £2,000, and we were like, okay, we want to buy a PS5. So they bought a PS5.
for the term.
No, they bought it.
the £2,000 per term.
It's £2,000 per term in my
Yeah.
house. It's for our school. It was calculated per student,
Right.
so there's a per head number.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
we kind of
we
got to
had-
choose to.
we at the beginning, I don't really remember a choice, but in our last year, I remember our house mistress saying like, "What do you think we need in the
yeah.
house? Like,
Mm.
what
She'd
do
be
you
like,
want
we
us
have
to
remainder
buy?"
funds. What would we
Yeah.
get?
So
and
we
we'd
got
get,
an air fryer in
Yeah.
house.
Very practical.
We'd get
Yeah.
things that would improve
we
the
got
house.
a cheap, like a
Right.
toasty machine.
Oh, we had that too. I
Yeah.
used
We had a
that.
crepe making machine
Oh,
as well.
that's good.
So I mean, you were super busy, right? So you talked a little bit about like needing a bit of a change of scene, but you were kept busy enough, and
Yeah.
sounds like you had such a great time.
Yeah,
Sounds.
it's a lot of fun.
Any regrets?
My only regret would be probably not recognizing what a privileged environment and experience I was having at
Yeah.
the time. I almost wish I made more use of it,
Yeah.
spoke to more people. I don't know why, but for some reason I kept my head down quite a bit during
Yeah.
the whole time. I was quite shy at school, I'd say. So my only regret would be not making the use out of it, talking to our OM connections and alumni.
Yeah. It's a good
I
point.
didn't take part in as many activities as I could have.
Or we took part, and we would just be very secluded within ourselves.
Yeah.
We were quite isolated within our house. It was
Yeah.
just an our house thing where we clumped together and
there was like
Yeah.
the 5, 6 of us that were just always together. If there was
Yeah.
anything that was like a whole school activity,
we should have been more open-minded. That's
Yeah.
my regret. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't really do a lot of things until sixth form.
I did quite a bit. I was in the orchestra
It
and
wasn't
choir.
until that last semester of 100 I started like going to things. I remember when we went to that first school dance, me and Maggie, the one you had to dress up as the kid, the first name of a character with the
I
same letter as your first
in
name.
UK back then.
Oh, there were lots
Yeah.
of dress ups and formals.
Yeah,
Did
there was
you-
lots of like
We had
school dances.
Not like the dress up as the first letter of your name, but we had parties for all the major events. We would have a Halloween
parties.
party, a Christmas dance, a Easter party, all sorts of.
But were
kind
those sort of like,
events.
I think like what you were saying about, developing independence and becoming an adult, those events were quite adult,
They
where you had
were,
to did you put on a tux?
Just a suit.
Just a suit, but
We
still
had
nice.
the
The girls all
formal
put
events. We had
evening
the formal
dresses
But then we
on.
also had like a mock club situation.
We had it was like a bar club
on like Saturday
thing.
night.
Oh,
Saturday
alcohol.
night.
Did you have alcohol in your
No,
school?
our school was.
Oh, you have for religious reasons. It was a bit different, right?
Yeah, our school was just zero tolerance on
Okay.
campus.
But a lot of the boarding schools do this. So
We
tell
had
us how
parties.
you were able to
We
partake in
had-
some alcohol.
We had
You answer this.
we had a sixth form center that was a bar, and when you reach sixth form with your
Credits.
parents' permission, they'd have to sign a form and pay for all your drinks. you were able to
Still
have
200 drinks left.
Oh, I had like 111
okay, we
left
got
when I
refunded.
graduated.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes. But you'd be able to go to the bar on the Saturday nights
Okay.
when you're after you turn 16.
And there's a DJ and
there's
everything.
there's a DJ, there's a dance floor, but it was a controlled environment where you would like learn to drink responsibly.
Mm.
Oh,
You'd
and we
get-
were breathalyzed
Yeah.
before going in.
Before going
we
in,
had like a drink limit. That's
there
how it
were-
was controlled.
There were 2 drinks in
per
lower
person.
6, and you'd have to have them 20 minutes apart. And then when you reached upper 6, you
I
got
never got
3
that far.
drinks. I never got to the 3 drink limit. I was bumped down to 1 only.
I didn't know that you were breathalyzed. And then in the bar environment, Saturday nights, there were boys and girls and
Yeah.
dancing, and then
There's-
So it was
There
very
was a dance
controlled. It was
floor.
supervised. There were teachers
There
there.
were teachers walking all
Yeah.
around.
You don't want to go crazy with your
Did anyone
Yeah.
go crazy?
yes.
a few. But when you turned 18, you were allowed to go into the town
Pubs, right.
for the
Yeah.
bars, but those rules still applied. There'd be teachers walking around the bars, being like supervising you, making sure you didn't have too much. You weren't allowed any spirits, any cocktails.
If we had special reasons, like maybe a friend's birthday or some reason to kind of go and celebrate, and you were 18, we were allowed to go to the local pub. And our school didn't have necessarily a written policy stating, but as long as when you come back and you don't disturb anyone, if you just go straight to your room and go to sleep and wake up and go to school, they're not going to have a problem with you. If you start causing trouble because you're drunk, obviously, that's a different
So
story.
no curfew to speak of.
No, we had a curfew, but they would, if it was your birthday, they could
Right.
push it back half an hour, and they're quite understanding.
House by house basis, I'd say.
Yeah. And house, because our houses were different, even in our school.
Right.
Like also person by person basis.
Yeah.
If you were like
Oh.
a troublemaker, you'd have like an earlier curfew.
Right.
Yeah.
And
if-
also
if-
teacher by teacher
yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
Some teachers were
Our
really
house
strict.
was quite relaxed on it, but I know other houses were like
If you
on the
are
dot, you
back
have to be there for
by 10,
registration. Yeah.
You know,
Detention.
and once you're there for a while, you know which teachers
You know what to do.
you can be
yeah.
a bit late for.
Yeah.
You know which teachers you have to be 20 minutes early for. And you know
Yeah.
who you can kind of push a bit more this way. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's
Also-
kind of something you learn throughout.
Another life skill.
Younger years have earlier curfews.
I
Yes.
see, yeah.
So every year you go up, you get 15 extra minutes out.
We
Yeah.
got half an hour extra, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about some of the parents will worry that children at boarding school will get up to no good. And I'm sure some of them do, like the isolated incidents and cases. And I always say that it's going to happen. There will be kids that act out, and it's about how the school handles it. So what stories do you have for me?
I mean, there was a system.
A demeriting
There
system.
Yes,
there was,
yeah.
The first time you would get in trouble, it'd be a warning. I think second time was a warning. Third time you'd get a gating, which
And then
is
eventually suspension and
That stuff.
Yeah,
And did that actually happen?
yes.
sometimes yes.
What were some of the common offences? Why were children?
Oh, okay. Like the common offenses, having
Vaping, drinking too
having
much,
like the opposite gender over
Yeah, in you weren't allowed to have the opposite gender.
Yeah.
Like
or
above
being
the first
outside of
floor.
like outside of house, outside of the time periods that you're
Yeah.
allowed to be in.
Go-
Leaving the school proximities
without
like,
permission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as we had a similar demerit system, and we had it would go, you would get a lunchtime detention,
Oh yeah, that.
a Saturday detention, or
Saturday
gaming,
night
depending if you were
Saturday
a
night
day or a board.
detentions.
Ours was Saturday morning, so you actually had to wake up early.
Ours was 2 hours in the evening, Saturday nights, so you'd miss Longy.
But there was this thing that wasn't a detention, but it was kind of like a gating. It was called that.
Yeah, we
where
had-
you'd have to like be in uniform from morning till night, and then you'd have to check in with your
Right.
With
the
a
duty
teacher.
staff, and every hour they tick saying you were in house.
We
Yeah.
had you didn't have to be in uniform, but every half an hour, and you weren't allowed to leave your house. And
Yeah,
some
that.
teachers, the rule is they would take your device in my school.
Oh.
Some teachers would, some teachers wouldn't. So it's
I never
a
got
lucky
gated.
thing.
Yeah. So any offences?
I never got gated.
No.
I got a wrongful detention once, but I didn't go to it.
Oh,
I can't imagine that would help your case.
No, because I was really upset that I got a wrongful detention because I got
Wrongful in whose eyes?
in
Her
everyone's-
eyes.
No,
I was there.
I got detention for not handing in a piece of work that I had handed in from a
right.
different teacher who wasn't the teacher that I was handing the piece of work into.
All right.
So then I was really upset, and my house mistress
I
got
had
it
my
taken
fair
out off my
shares
record.
of experiences.
same.
Yeah.
I think the important thing is
You learn
For
from your
parents-
from
mistakes.
it.
for parents is
Yeah.
they have to be aware it's going to happen.
Well, actually, can I speak as a parent for a moment? I think it's nice that we don't get to hear about it, that it's dealt with
Oh my gosh,
in
Imagine.
school.
Most of the time,
What do you mean? Oh my gosh!
I remember there was,
There was the whole pastoral situation where there's like a
It wasn't
ladder.
that, it wasn't
Until you get to
that.
the top ladder, your parents don't
Yeah.
hear about
Your
Yeah.
it.
parents only hear if it's
very
really
serious,
bad.
like you're
Really
going
serious.
to get expelled.
And that's
yeah.
quite good in a sense for your parents and also for you because
You can
they
learn
will tell
from
you,
your
they'll say,
mistakes.
okay, next time you do this, we're going to tell your parents. And then
Yeah.
it clicks in your head like, okay.
Is that
Games up.
deterrent?
It's I think it depends on the parents. I wasn't too worried about mine because mine are quite relaxed, as you know.
Mine were not relaxed.
Yeah,
so
this is-
there was this one instance where I was in the wrong, and it was quite a big violation, I'd say. And I was so nervous that I didn't call my dad for like 3 days. And that's very unheard of. I call my parents every day. I was so like guilty that I didn't contact them for so long that my parents had to call me and were like, "Are you okay? Are you alive?" But then when I found out that the school wouldn't pressure me into telling my parents and actually just let me come to terms with what I've done and reflect on it and then tell them in my own time, that made me feel so much better.
I like that my school gave me the option when, if there was a problem, so to speak, that they were going to tell my parents, they would say, okay, look, here's your phone. We're going to give you the opportunity to speak to your parents first. And I think it's nice to, from a school perspective, obviously they just want to get it done with and they don't really, if they were just going as quick as possible, they wouldn't give you the opportunity. And I think they realize that there's much more to the relationship.
Well, because it's actually a teaching opportunity. I mean, they are educators at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think coming from from my adult perspective, and again as a parent, I do think it's nice that they can handle it and that you're learning from it. I didn't get to hear anything. It didn't get to the point where it was
She's a
serious
good
enough.
kid.
I was never in trouble. I was too scared. I didn't want to get in trouble.
So stories. So the stories were vaping. Is vaping a big issue in boarding schools? Do you think?
It was for a short period in our year group when we were doing our GCSEs, and then I never heard of it again.
I think there are new regulations being set in place.
I mean, your
so-
sister's still in school.
I think, look, you can't really go and say that there isn't going to be vaping in a school. If someone on tour tells you that, they're lying.
Yeah.
But I think obviously schools have systems in place. Like our school had, they built a bathroom which were all stalls, but the common area just was open to a door where the sink was. Because that was a problem that they realized where people would just go sit by the sinks and stuff and maybe, be up to no good.
Yeah.
But also I think they educate a lot about it and there's a lot of events. We had the one that really, got to me was, I don't know if you ever had a county lines talk.
What's that?
So county lines is a thing in the UK. It's more in the southwest and that area of England where drug traffickers will use students as mules and they'll say, we'll give you this backpack, we'll give you £500, bring it back to your city and someone will collect it from you. And, for a student, that's like £500 and I'm going anyways. Why not? And our school had someone who come in and talk about that. And, we had a case where unfortunately a local person in our village got involved in that, not someone at our school. But I think by the school creating such a big emphasis on the negative stuff, not necessarily going, oh, smoking's bad for you or don't do drugs, but by actually educating you, about the why.
I mean, whenever
That's
there's
crazy.
yeah, I mean,
That's unheard of in
we
our
never
school.
had a drug problem in our school.
No,
I
not
never
a drug
heard
problem.
of
This
it.
is them educating about trafficking, because a lot of our boarders, maybe their family would have a house in London, and London's 2 or 3 hours
so
away.
when they're on the train or going on exit weekends or something like that, someone would approach them at the train station, and then
We never had that.
Yeah.
But I mean, talking about naivety, right? Because they're children and we want our children to be innocent and naive, but then there's a progression to maturity where you learn about some of the sort of the darker sides of life. And so, right? And they teach you about any of the issues that are happening out in society. I remember, don't be a drug mule. That's a
But
good one.
they do it very slowly, and I think we had a weekly thing called PHSE.
Yep.
I don't know what it
Personal,
life skills.
social, health education.
Yeah, so, and in year 9, you would start off by talking about like a little bit about budgeting for the first boarders, and maybe how to manage your money a little bit.
You had
Our
life skills.
Our life skills were very
consent
different.
heavy.
Yeah, very heavy on
Healthcare.
personal care.
Sexual education.
Yeah.
There's that always, I don't know if you saw the
tea
the
video.
tea video. It's I think if any of your children go to boarding schools,
You'll
see
watch
a
the
tea
tea
video
Any
about
British
consent.
school has
It's
seen
very
the tea video.
It's
We'll
unanimous.
Sticks with you.
It's very quotable.
We'll put a link to the tea video, which is famous. We were talking about consent the other day, weren't we? And I think, for the girls, probably they get a little bit more. Well, maybe not, actually. Maybe not.
What, education on it?
Yeah.
I think I would say it's the other way around.
Yeah,
almost.
as I was saying that, I was thinking probably...
For me at least, the consent topics were more angled towards the boys. And, we would have separate talks sometimes about separate problems.
Yeah.
Because there obviously is that angle to it, which statistically it's more one way or another. And there will be problems which will be addressed more directly to girls. And the school's quite good about separating it, so you're not being made fun of.
What were some of the other issues that they were teaching you in life skills or PSHE? Do you remember?
Our school's entire system changed in our last year of school for teaching.
We had talks come
Yeah,
in.
instead of having weekly classes, which I, to be honest, did not go to because I didn't want to.
No one's forcing you to expose yourself
But,
like this.
They changed them from weekly hour-long classes to one, like a full day of talks a semester. And they brought in like professionals, like guest speakers.
Yeah.
They taught you like how to finance a car,
How to handle grief. That was a
how
really
to handle
good
grief.
talk.
Okay, that's a good one.
They taught us about a little bit about the legal system.
There was one talk about about how consent is taught differently. We kind of got it from a male perspective where
Of a lawyer.
it was a man being framed
He was
for
framed and
a sexual assault.
We've had a lawyer
Yeah.
come in. I think that's quite a common one.
Yeah.
A lawyer will come in and explain the legal side of consent.
we had
Yeah.
a doctor
Yeah.
come in. We had a doctor come in who was the local GP in the area and started talking about how to keep yourself healthy and all that to make sure you're keeping yourself up to date with all your injections and all that.
Yeah, I think regardless of the school, I mean, we've had quite similar experiences in our life skills or PHSE class, but regardless of the school, there will be classes which will revolve around topics like consent, like health, personal well-being, mental health, because the schools realize, especially in boarding schools, that you don't have your parents to kind of educate you in a car ride or that you need someone to actually talk to you about it, and you're not going to ask for it. You just, it's something that you will have to learn.
Mental health is such a big thing in boarding school.
Yeah, they're very proactive on mental health and awareness for it, because they realize that as
we learn from experience.
yeah, and also being away from home and being in a completely new environment, and maybe you're struggling socially, or you're having a bad time and you're struggling mental wise,
They notice sometimes.
and they know how to
Well,
help.
they should. Did you
They
see friends, classmates that were struggling?
I remembered one night I was told to come down because one of my teachers was coming over. I thought she'd come to talk with me about a school, an assignment. She was like, "How are you doing with all your friends? Are you all right?" I was like, "I'm fine." I was not expecting it at all, but I I think like my house mistress had seen that I'd like closed off a little bit. So she had a teacher come in and talk with me.
I think in our school, especially because you're living with your teachers as well, they really notice. They notice everything, like from the meal times to the social times. They also they're very observant over your overall behavior in class and in house. And when there were students who were struggling, obviously the first step was to send them to the counselor that each boarding school has, to my knowledge. And if that didn't work, they'd branch out to the NHS system and they'd speak to
professionals.
Even we did have qualified professionals,
but specialized professionals.
The ones from the hospitals, the big guns.
We had a wellbeing cottage.
A cottage. That sounds cute.
It was quite nice. We had mini horses and goats that you could go and
ponies.
Ponies, that's what they're called. And dogs that would be there, and because it's quite nice to have I don't know if you miss your animal.
Yes, animal therapy.
And animal therapy, I think our school was looking into it. So you could go and spend some time with the goats.
Well, cute. Well, it's kind of a thing. Most house masters or mistresses, they have a house pet, don't they?
Oh yeah. We had
dogs mainly.
We had 2
but
dogs.
I know this one specific teacher had a therapy dog.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying ferret.
No.
That's where I thought she was going.
The therapy dog, she was a house tutor at nights, and she'd bring the dog over some nights. It's so cute.
We had teachers who would bring their pets in when they would do the evening shift, and it's quite nice because I didn't have pets at home, but it's I think a dog or a cat is always it's always nice to throw a ball.
I was never a dog person. I was scared of dogs, but then I started kind of loving dogs a little bit.
But even if it wasn't a serious, or the teachers wouldn't send you to the counselor or anything, you could talk to anyone. All the staff, they would understand, and they're always open to talk.
We also had, in our school, we had a system called peer mentors.
Oh yeah,
where upper 6 students were trained. They went to classes on how to handle those discussions with other pupils.
We had this as well, and they'd have different color lanyards,
and we'd have a sign on someone's bedroom door to say that they were a peer mentor.
And our teachers would be, if our teachers were safeguarding trained, they would wear an orange lanyard, and they take quite a long and intense course on safeguarding both in the house and out of it. And I think all house parents and mistresses and matrons, are required to have the qualifications.
Well, it sounds like you had a great time and, ups and downs, but you came out of it unscathed and well-adjusted human beings, I think. What, we have to sort of start to wrap up, but what advice would you have for either students who are sort of starting to explore if they would like to go to boarding school, or parents who are thinking of sending their children to boarding school?
I think for students, it's to embrace the change and not fight it. I found myself when I joined, not wanting to do the things that maybe back home would be done for me, and really just being quite, I guess you could say, arrogant about the way I go through my day. And then it takes a while to realize that you're going to have to adjust to this. And it's better if you go in with an open mind and try a new thing, instead of going in very closed off.
Yeah, I like that.
Make the most of all the experiences, because there's so many.
You'll have regrets.
There's so many different clubs that you can join, so many different sports that you can try. There's so much going on.
Are there any students that you think wouldn't fit into boarding school in general? Of course, there are so many different types of boarding schools, but do you think there are things to look for that parents can say, I think my child is going to be, will enjoy boarding school or won't?
I'm not.
I think you could, on one hand, you could be a bit like me also almost, and grow into the experience, learn to love it, embrace the change.
That's what you were saying.
And adapt to it gradually. Yeah. But there are some students that, obviously, some struggle for short term is normal, but if it's been years on end where you're in constant homesickness, constant suffering, that's not normal.
And it's about that mental strength going into it, because I think everyone coming from, you know, a place like Hong Kong and going to England, which is miles and miles away, and you're so far from your family and your existing friends, and going to a new place, you're going to struggle the first few months. You're going to miss home. You're going to miss home cooked food. I think that was a big thing I missed. But, you know, 2-3 months in, you start getting used to it. A year in, it starts to become home. And you've just got to have that mental capacity to just go through with it and understand that.
The time will pass anyways.
And I think it prepares you so well for life and university.
Well, let's just end on that. You know, you are first year uni students now, and I know that we've had some conversations that children who didn't go to boarding school find it much more of a difficult transition. Did you find that?
No, I
found it an easy transition,
I found
right?
it great because, like, for example, when I went to boarding school, I didn't know how to make my bed. But in boarding school, your matron would teach you, and she would come to your room and show you how to strip your pillowcases.
Or did she just do it for you?
No, she would teach you. Our school, you were forced to learn. Okay. But in university, if you don't know how to do it, and if you're far away from home, there's not a matron to teach you. And a lot of my friends would struggle with that.
Yeah.
From a social aspect, personally, I integrated really well into university, but that was more of a personal change. I did recognize that some people from boarding school might struggle actually with university because they're so used to growing up in the same pool of people for like years on end that they were almost quite in a bubble. So when they went into university,
so you're mixing with a much more broad range
it'd just be an overwhelming
children.
Experience.
Well,
but also you talk to everyone in boarding school kind of. So a positive would be that the adjustment is quite easy.
And you're very used to an international environment. Well, maybe a lot of schools, if you went to like a school in Hong Kong, they're international, but comparing that to a university in London or a boarding school in England, the internationality of it is a lot higher. You know, the boarding schools in the UK attract people from all over the world, and so do the universities. And I think it's quite important to have that adjustment where the first time you're in a very international community and very international friends isn't, you know, when you're 18 and when you don't have that support around you for if you don't like someone or someone's views. And it's about learning how to understand that.
Yeah, really good points. Well, thank you, Nathaniel, Charlotte, Kashi. It's been really interesting. I will definitely do this again, because I think that as parents and adults, we hear from, well, it becomes a little bit like an echo chamber sometimes. But you are supporting, you are echoing and supporting what a lot of the educators and the teachers have said, but just with a different point of view. So it's been really super interesting. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having
us.
Thank you.